So how does somebody go from just taking pictures and being a hobby photographer to actually being hired by somebody to take professional shots? Like, what was your journey? Cole,
How's
what's
it
up, man?
going?
I'm good, man. Got some of the technical things figured out. Hopefully, it sounds as good as it looks.
You know what? What do you think of the setup here? Because we could be running you on this pretty soon.
Um, it's cool. It's like a little cavern. I can't really tell. You have the blur feature on, so you can't really see what's behind you.
Oh
It's
no,
kind of
see that's
nice.
actually just the $5,000 camera that I'm using as a webcam.
If you lean too far back, you get blurry. So you gotta
Yeah,
like stay
yeah.
close.
Because
There
it's
you go.
it's it's on a manual focus setting because I can't figure out how to get autofocus, like continuous autofocus, while I actually like use it as a webcam.
So you're on a $5,000 camera setup and a $4 microphone setup.
Actually, no, that's a $350 microphone in my ear right now.
You need to get your money back, bro. You need to get your
Well,
money
it's
back.
it's the AirPod Pros, so you pay for the convenience of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, don't worry. I'll try to figure out some way to fix up the audio. Maybe I can run it through some sort of software to reduce the
yeah, yeah.
sounds. Anyways, so there's one thing in particular I wanted to start the conversation about, and then we can just talk about whatever.
Sounds good.
Why photography?
Oh, that is a great question. I get this question quite a bit, obviously, as a career that isn't the most conventional, as you could say. Um, it's people. I have a love and a passion for making connections with people, and my art it has been a I guess the premier way that I've found that connects me to other people and lets me share everything with the audience that I've built, right? So
Hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily a love for photography that got me into this. It's the love for sharing and the love for connecting with others.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that have any sort of creative outlet, that's usually what their vice is, right? Some sort of
Yeah,
connection that they don't get in other ways. Like like you get like a painter, and usually when they paint something, they're trying to express some sort of emotion or some sort of message, or it's like an attempt to connect. So
totally, totally,
so it's
exactly.
okay. So it wasn't really that photography was the thing that was, scratching the itch. It was just the medium that you randomly happened to pick up.
Totally. And I like I say this but like uh as kind of as a joke, but at the same time like traveling.
Hmm.
I end up doing a lot of traveling because of photography, and it's just the way that the cookie crumbled that let me do all this cool stuff, as well as, even just the people, right?
Hmm.
Again, it comes down to the people, right? I've found a couple of great guys that I do photography work with, that I do actually like business. We work with each other in our creative realms, and honestly, that's been what really kept me going.
Yeah, I want to talk about the business aspect of it down the road, because I think that's what everyone's curious about when it comes to like how they can take a creative outlet and turn it into something where they can live off of. But before we get to that, you kind of sidelined my question too. Like, what made you choose the actual medium? Like, what was it about um, taking photos of things that made you
Hmm.
want to do, your connection through that medium instead of, I don't know, anything else?
I guess it comes down again to the people. Like, I got like there's a lot of influence through like where we live. So, being in the Fraser Valley, it is a very photography rich community just because of how beautiful our landscapes are. And so when all of this stuff kept on popping up on my Instagram, I was like, hey, that looks pretty cool. So I started going to these places, and then actually, okay, I'll tell you this story.
Okay.
I got my first camera because of a girl. So
Usually
that's
starts
how it
that way.
all,
Yeah.
right? it always is a girl. So there's this girl that I really liked at the time. I was probably like 14, 15. No, it would have been 14 because I got my first camera for my 15th birthday.
Hmm.
Um, but like she always wanted to go and take photos because she knew this awesome photographer from the area, and so we were following him. We kept on going to the same places he would go to, and we'd take photos there, and it was lots of fun. And it was
Hmm.
always just a reason to like get out and hang out and do stuff together. And then eventually I got my camera and I started going out with my friends, taking them to these cool places. Um, and again, it was always just my excuse to be with people, right? Because like
Hmm.
as well as much as it's fun as it is playing video games with friends or even going out to drink with friends, when you kind of have something to show for it in the end of when you're hanging out, that
Hmm.
feels amazing. That you really connect with a person over that because that is the product of your work together, your ability to come together and create something.
Mm.
And that was what drew me into photography at first. I did a lot of portraits. I did weddings by the time I was 18, and then I moved on to travel and tourism because of the people that I met through photography. Right, I met a good friend of mine. His name is Ben Prescott. He is one of the biggest photographers in Canada on
Hmm.
Instagram, and because of that, he gets to travel a lot, and we meshed together really well. Our work ethics really lined up, and that gave me the opportunity to start working for his company and doing stuff for him.
Mm.
And we didn't then travel, but it was always just about like you always ask that medium, and it was just like the people in photography are the people that I connect to.
Mm. Okay. So, like, how long have you been doing the travel photos for now?
I'd like safely say 3.5 years.
Okay. What's like the coolest place that you've had the opportunity to take a picture of?
Oh man, that's like asking someone like
Who their favorite
who their
child is?
favorite child is.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so hard because I have such a love for this world and all the places that I've visited. It's kind of hard to narrow it down and like I could just say Iceland, right, which is a huge geographical location with different landscapes, different iconic features. But my heart really belongs in California. That is the love of my life down there.
I
Sorry to my girlfriend, but
don't worry, don't worry.
I love.
We'll cut that part out.
Yeah, no, California. I've gone down there 5, 6 times now. Just like since I graduated or since I've become an adult and done photography, surf trips, family trips, um, and then a lot of photography because it is a gorgeous area. The weather is amazing, gorgeous beaches, crazy mountains. It has that same feeling of you can ski and surf in one day that BC has, but it's warmer. It's a lot more inviting. It has a lot more sun.
Hmm. Have you been to California recently?
No, since so right now we're what January 2021. The last time I went to California would have been would have been I think January 2020. So it would have been
About a
about a year
year
now. Yeah,
before the world was set ablaze.
you could say that. Yeah, yeah, that's one way of saying it.
Do you find that sometimes the photography aspect of your outings is this the excuse to do the outings in the first place?
Oh, totally. That's
It's just
I
kind of
like
like the memorabilia
to.
of it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, sometimes it can be really hard to trick people into going out and doing something, right? So you can always call up a friend and be like, "Hey, you want to hang out? What do you want to do?" Photography was always just that easy, like, "Let's go take photos."
So how many guys
So,
have come up to you and been like, "Yo, I need you to beef up my Tinder profile. I need you to take me and make me look really interesting and take pictures of me."
well, as soon as you become like a real homie, I'll do that for you because I'll take you to some cool places. But then obviously the camera's with me, so it's an always an inadvertent effect, right? But
So you have
I
done
think
it before.
oh yeah, I think I have like two instances where the guy actually asked me to do that for that profile.
Okay. And so like what were the results? Do you know what the
I
results are?
think I think about a 30% increase in matches. So if any guys are watching this, any single guys, and they want to beef up their dating profiles, just go pay a photographer $100 for the day. Get like 3 or 4 awesome photos, slap those on your profiles, maybe fix up the bio a bit. But like, I think in the 3 days preceding my one friend's post of one of my photos of him, he had 10 matches just from that one photo. Because like on some profiles you can see like or some apps you can see like which photo that they like,
Right, right.
and it was usually that one photo.
So he owes you dividends basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah, for those dates. Okay. So like you obviously know how to take like captivating photos, like your Instagram's full of a lot of really interesting and unique camera angles and shots, but do you find that there's a difference between somebody who can like take an aesthetically pleasing picture versus somebody who can take a picture that has emotion behind it?
I think the a lot of times, at least especially in the world of Instagram now, the emotion is the aesthetic, right?
Okay.
I've like a great example is Banff. It's a gorgeous national park of Canada, probably my favorite place in Canada, period. And I've seen everything from like that like vintagey 70s effect on photos back there for a this girl's Tumblr that I follow, all the
Hmm.
way to like actual cinema movies filmed there. My friend, at least I think it was my friend that was filming, did a commercial for Lincoln with what's his face? What is the guy that's always in them?
Matthew McConaughey?
Yes, Matthew McConaughey.
All
Yeah,
right, all
yeah,
right, all
filming that.
right. It's like
Yeah,
it's like the
and
one where it's like he's like playing with this thing.
yeah,
His
yeah,
finger
yeah,
is like,
exactly.
I was driving Lincolns before they were paying me. I like the
Right,
way
and
it feels.
so you can get like everything from a single place.
Mm,
I think the emotion lies in, well, the beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, right? And I think
yeah.
the emotion that you're trying to get out of it really comes across not just from the location, but uh, how you force someone to perceive a location. Because there's different styles of editing and different times to shoot. Like if you shoot midday, classically, that's not a great time to shoot. You get crazy light contrasts, and so when you shoot sunset, everyone gets this warm feeling of usually like contentment and comfort
Mhm.
and joy and happiness because it is uh, in the golden hour of photography. Um, Everything gets a really soft lighting. It's really warm and pleasing, and
Mm,
so when you use that to your advantage, you get uh, you get a much more comforting aesthetic to your photo. But then even in editing, and it goes hand in hand when you shoot. So my Instagram is built off of a lot of foggy, cold photos. I love shooting in mid to late fall, all the way until like early spring, when you get this very wet and mysterious look to your photos. And I edit them in a very cinematic way, which means it's full of teals and oranges, which is the, I guess, formula that a lot of movies use, right?
mhm,
They're
mhm,
very complementary colors to each other, and something in the brain of humans like them.
mm. Okay. So you mentioned briefly something about like editing. I noticed a friend of mine who actually also is a photographer was taking a whole bunch of photos that he had taken and putting it through Lightroom. And just through Lightroom alone, he could like just dramatically change the color. Like he could make the leaves either look like it was the spring or autumn or the
Yeah.
summer. Do you find that I guess maybe you've been doing photography since like those technologies have been around, but do you find that that almost ruins it? The fact that you can kind of take a shot and then change it in whatever way you want versus having to be there at a certain time? Or am I wrong?
I think it's the artist's approach to it. I know a lot of people that would call themselves digital artists that take photos of these crazy places and then they make composites, so like impossible composites. You see a mid or like a sunset photo of a mountain, but then you have this gigantic moon behind it. Well, obviously that moon doesn't come across like that. That is from a different image taken with at a different time with a different lens, but
Hmm.
it's still an amazing photo. It still is very, very moving, but it's the intent and the honesty behind it because he never claims that that was one single photo,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I guess in the public it can get muddled, but for the most part you can tell if a photo's been changed dramatically.
Hmm.
Um, and I think at least in the niche that I found myself, it's very I wouldn't even say that it's more open and honest. It's just that um, when you see a photo, you kind of know that that's exactly what is happening.
Okay.
There's enough of an edit on it that it looks natural or that it looks good, but it holds off from anything too crazy that it is it the ideal is that you capture what you feel at the moment, what it looks like to you, and then that comes across in the photo, right?
So kind of the editing itself is an art.
Oh, totally.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of multi-layered now. Okay. We kind of briefly touched on it, but I think we should dive deep into it. So how does somebody go from just taking pictures and being a hobby photographer to actually being hired by somebody to take professional shots? Like, what was your journey?
Um, well, it's funny because like everyone has a different journey because there's so many different outlets now, and right now you need to be super active on social media because the bigger your social media, obviously, the more chances you are to be seen by a potential employer. And even when you're reviewed by an employer, if you have a bigger following, that just means you're like better. It's now conflated to each other.
Mm.
Um, like the market even since I started doing photography, has changed. Back in even 5 years ago in 2015, uh, you could um, you could either be an Instagram photographer, like social media, and that's what you do, or you can be a publishing photographer and you do high art or National Geographic or Time, like magazines, or you
Yeah.
go out to like BBC One, start doing crazy filmmaking for their like Planet Earth or right stuff like that, right? And there's
Hmm.
still kind of that split, but that gap is closing
Mm.
now in a lot of instances, employers look at your social media, obviously, and in the workplace, but
Mm.
then more intently when you're looking at a content creation is what it's called.
Hmm.
So, uh, my best advice is, to someone that's wanting to do this is shoot and try everything and then find what you like to do and lean into it. The step that I'm still building up to is just taking the jump to quitting my job and having no safety net. And that's what every successful person that I've seen has done.
Hmm. Yeah, funny you
But
mentioned that. My friend Justin, who was actually on the previous episode, he's a mortgage advisor, and he said something really profound. He said that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to have no safety net. You just need to go for it.
oh,
And
totally,
he obviously there's caveats. Like if there's people you have to take care of, you have to make sure that they're taken care of. But what he was
exactly.
trying to imply was like all the all the people, whether you know about them because they have a public following or they're private people that have made it doing their own thing, had no other choice. Like that was their only last resort. And that was the thing that kind of motivated them every day and pushed them through the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get it. Like, I'm not in the photography realm, but I'm on Instagram. I enjoy looking at photography on Instagram of all kinds. And like, I would be overwhelmed if I wanted to start as a photographer and post things on Instagram because I just see so many different people posting. And like, maybe I also, because I don't do it, I don't have the eye for it. Like, I can't really tell what's really good and what isn't. But when
Mm-hmm.
something is like really, really good, then I just enjoy it as like a layman, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
and
it's like,
and
and I guess it doesn't really matter whether or not I like it or not, because that's the beauty of the internet, is that you can find a niche for anything.
mm-hmm.
Like if you're really into nature shots, I'm sure there's a photographer that specializes in nature shots and does nothing
Yeah,
else, doesn't take pictures of people, just
yeah,
squirrels,
yeah.
squirrels and trees.
There's an entire niche of just small animal photography.
Yeah. I mean, to be able to get one of those critters like doing their thing without moving from a little, a zoom in lens, like you see like those like National Geographic
Yeah,
lenses that are
yeah,
like
yeah.
this. Then there's like an owl sitting on it.
Sitting on
Yeah,
it's
that
crazy.
stuff's pretty cool.
Like
Like, do you
those
ever do you
guys.
ever do that stuff? Like, do you just go out and just kind of like a sniper, just like take camp for 12 hours and just like scope on random things and take pictures of them?
Honestly, I was just about to say, like those guys are akin to hunters, right? Like
Mm,
I haven't been on hunting trips, but to really get out there is you have to kind of slog through, and I've never done it because those lenses can cost upwards. The one like certain ones will cost you 20 grand actually to get.
wow.
Like there are some out there that are just insanely expensive. The average person you'll be running at least 3 grand for one of those kinds of lenses.
Mm,
Um, and so I haven't done it just because I can't front that kind of money, especially
mhm.
since it's not my business. But it is something that would totally be fun, and I'd totally love to try, especially being that we live like a couple hours from like prime like moose and caribou land,
Mhm.
right? You can see grizzlies in people's backyards 30 minutes away, right?
Yeah,
It's
true.
right there. We have the resources to do it. It's just I haven't gotten out personally. It is hard work though, because sometimes you do sit for 4 hours on end just in your little hut, right?
Yeah. Speaking of hard work, how do you have the conversation with people that don't value your work when they try to hire you? When they say, "Oh, it just takes you like 30 minutes to take a picture. Why does it cost a
Mm-hmm.
couple $100 or however much you charge?" It's like, "Why?"
Well, at that point, it's supply and demand, right? Like right now, there are a lot of photographers that are cheaper, but it's maintaining a high quality. And obviously, if you work fast enough, you can charge those prices. But when I talk to someone that doesn't want to, that is always the hard sell. And I'll be honest, I don't. I'd probably say most of those clients, like around 80% of those clients, I can't convince to buy because they're going in already cocked and loaded to not
Mm.
make that purchase,
So
right?
they're just not your customer.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
If they want someone that's cheap, they can go to someone that's cheap, but they're also going to get what they pay for. That's
Mm.
that's true with everything, and obviously, and I try to cater, and I'm always willing, especially for like small businesses, to negotiate because that's the bread and butter of the Lower Mainland where I live, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
having
I
and having
it must be tougher too since you're a younger guy. Like I found my brief tenure in real estate. Excuse me. I Nobody ever directly said it to me, but I felt it sometimes that people thought I was full of crap
Yeah.
because I was just young, because they just assumed I didn't know.
Hmm.
Um, and to be fair, like there's probably a lot of stuff I didn't know because I hadn't been around much, but I knew enough to be able to help people, and I felt like if I didn't know, I had the resources in my brokerage to be able to answer their questions and figure things out. But I could kind of like read in between the lines when
Totally.
people didn't really. I don't mean respect. I don't really care about respect, but when people just believed I wasn't qualified because of my age. Do you find that that happens in the photography world?
Totally. But it's interesting because it's very much less so than in any business world. Just being that photography is now ruled by social media, right?
Mm,
Just because I'm 22 doesn't mean that I can't do crazy jobs. I followed a guy. He was 17, had 500,000 followers on Instagram, and was doing crazy work with huge brands. But it's because he had the following.
mm,
Um, I think in person that comes across a lot more than on the internet. Um,
mm.
in person, uh, that's where I feel like any animosity towards age would come out, right? Any not really animosity, I guess. It would be like
Bias.
bias, doubt,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Um, that's where that would be because that's a lot more personal, right? It's not just about numbers. It's not just about that. It's about confidence in a person.
mm. So basically, what you're saying is, in this day and age, you have to leverage your your following on either whatever platform you use in order to basically be able to prove that what you make is, you know, it has that social capital behind it. Like people are
Yeah.
interested in seeing it.
Well, it has an
Uh,
audience, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. So like,
But like I don't
go ahead.
think there's that much of a stigma against age in photography specifically.
Mm. I guess maybe because it's an art, right? Like a lot of artists
Hmm.
are young, old, in between. Like
Yeah.
art I find, or like the creative space is something where that stigma is kind of like not there. But I guess yeah, makes sense in the business world. The older you are, the more networking you've done, probably the more mistakes you've made. So chances are you won't
Hmm.
make those mistakes with that person.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I find myself sitting in an in between stage where like uh I love doing like the marketing side of it. It's not just the content creation at this point that I talk to a lot of people about. So it's funny just being like no schooling for photography or communications or advertising, but that's just that's where I've done all my work, right?
So how did you learn that?
And it's just trial and error. Like I've spent
Mm,
3 years now trying to build a professional social media, right?
mm-hmm.
And learning the ins and outs and having connections to people who do it professionally and people who have a lot more to show for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like nowadays, like it's not just your ability to be able to make good photos or good content, I guess, in general, if you're an artist, but you have to actually be able to promote it too. Like you
Hmm.
need to be able to do both. And
Yeah.
that's probably why it's hard for people to get the momentum going because there's so much more you need to do. But I find that it gives you the opportunity to be able to do it. Whereas before there was so many middlemen and there's bureaucracy and like you
Totally.
had to kind of have an in of some kind. There was some sort of
Yeah.
institution.
Yeah. Like 20 years ago, I would have never been, or it would have been a lot more of a risk jumping out of my kinesiology major, full ride scholarship to pursue this photography business, right?
Okay.
Like,
That's interesting. I didn't even know you did kines. I was actually going to ask you if you went to college or if you opted out, but what was that all about?
I tried it, realized that what I wanted to do was going to be way more school than I really wanted to commit to.
What was
Um,
that?
School isn't my passion, people are my passion. And so photography, I had the opportunity, and photography as well was just offering me a connection to people at that time, or in a lot shorter of a time, right?
Mm.
I
What
didn't want to
what were you looking to pursue in kinesiology before?
either like it would be like a physiotherapist or a chiropractor.
Okay, yeah. Fair bit of schooling.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere ballpark 8 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And continued education because there's always more to learn, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But you know
Oh,
what I find is like people when you pick a career path that doesn't have formal education tied to it, there's also this like thought that you don't continually learn in that field. Like just
mm,
because you don't have a license or a degree or something that requires you and forces you to like redo exams or whatever, like do a certain number of seminars, people assume that it's just something where you're not learning. And I find
yeah,
that
yeah,
like that's like pretty tragic. Like that
yeah.
thought process sucks.
It's a relic of an older age. Mm.
Well, it's just the phenomenal marketing of colleges
Yeah,
at the end of the
but
day.
like I'm like as a photographer, I'm just choosing real world experience over over going to a classroom and learning about the technical art of it,
Hmm.
right? I'm investing. I've been trying to at least invest my time into uh, learning from people that are still doing it and getting my foot in the door. Sure, it might be like I might not have the same in if I had a professor that could uh, recommend me,
Hmm.
but by the time that I in the last 3 years, I can now put brands on my resume that replace the idea of a diploma.
Well,
Um,
I mean, to be honest, like what can those classes even teach you? Like other than what you could already learn on YouTube.
exactly, exactly,
Like
and that's
I don't want
specifically
to like I don't want to just say like college is worthless or whatever, but like
no,
whenever
obviously not.
there's certain programs I find like when it's like movie making or photography or I don't know, like
Even like other mediums of
painting.
art.
Yeah, just painting or acting. I find while those college courses may lay a foundation in like general principles, you can't really learn until you do, right?
Yeah.
Like I paint Pokemon, but I'm not a painter. But it's like I can Google how to do the basic stuff, right?
My yeah, my
But
favorite example is mechanics. Like
oh yeah, yeah.
I have quite a few friends that have finished their program, their full-fledged mechanics,
Hmm.
and every single card they come in, we still either chat about it or look it up on YouTube.
Well, yeah, because they're all so different. They're all built differently. But I guess with a mechanic, you need somebody to have a license to do certain things
Yeah.
because then people's safety is involved, right? Like if you're going to be doing somebody's brakes, you better know how to like do them, right? I feel like that requires a barrier to entry. But if you're just going to be painting or taking photos, like worst case, you make something that people don't like. It doesn't
Hmm.
lead to someone's death, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. I just find it a funny anecdote that I can learn just as much as my friends who've done 2 years of schooling with
Yeah.
maybe a year of YouTube videos.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The beauty of the tech economy right now is that pretty much whatever you want to learn, you can. And as long
Yeah.
as it doesn't directly like require a license for you to actually be able to do that job, then there's no barrier to entry if you live in the first world and you have internet connection. Then
Yeah.
you just and even if you don't, there's public libraries hopefully in the area. I realize, some places don't have the same luxuries, but if you live in a normal environment in the first world, like the opportunities are
Endless.
overwhelming. They're overwhelming, like to the point
Yeah.
where it's like, shoot, like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing the other thing? There's like
Totally.
the paradox of choice or something. I don't know if that's a real paradox, but it's like you have
It
so many
is.
choices that you end up not doing anything.
Well, like there's it's I like to call it the Baskin Robbins theory, but there's a study on ice cream. It's on the study of choices, and people usually found that they were more content with their choice when they were given less choices. When
Mm,
they were given 34 options at Baskin Robbins or two between chocolate and vanilla.
mm.
There is a consistent uh, what would you call it? A consistent lean towards people being more content with the choice when they have less options.
It's like that ice cream place in Vancouver that has 300 flavors or whatever.
Right?
I've gone there probably a handful of times and I always get the same one.
Yeah,
I always get the pistachio one. I don't even bother with anything else because it's so overwhelming for me.
yeah,
For people who
exactly.
don't know what we're talking about, I forget what it's called. Um, it's a really famous ice cream shop in Vancouver that has, I think, like 200 different flavors, everything from like vanilla to like weird stuff like turmeric and Tabasco or like barbecue
It's
chicken. Like it's got weird
too
stuff.
much.
Yeah. And it's like a
Amazing
huge
ice cream.
tourist
Like I don't
attraction.
want to
Oh,
discount how good their ice
phenomenal
cream is.
ice cream. We'll turn this into a clip and I'll have their name in the description.
Yeah,
Really, really
yeah.
good ice cream. But I always go with the same pistachio ice cream that they have because, well, I'm Iranian and I have to represent my people. But the other thing is it's just so much choice that I find that if I browse too much, then I don't feel happy with the choice I made, which is dumb. It's like I'm going in to buy ice cream. I should be happy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Maybe that's why people like, you always hear like people that have very little are happier, like in the third world countries where, we look at them through this lens of, oh man, these people have nothing. But if you actually go and interact, the ones who are not sick and not, miserable because of like a war
Hmm.
that's happening in their area, they tend to be content with the little things that they have, and they tend to be a lot more appreciative of just the small things in their lives.
Hmm. It's funny you bring that up. So you're from Iran. I'm from Thailand. I come from a small orphanage in a major city in Thailand. But so it was very interesting when I was learning in my psychology courses. I took one university level psychology course, and it came up the difference between the way people think in the Western world, in Western civilization, and the way people think in a more Eastern, like Asia and stuff, and even Africa. And it's this conflicting idea of community,
Hmm.
like it's you or the community. Where we're in Western world, everything is about you. Everything is how does this make me
Individualistic.
better? Yes. Where everything in uh, or I guess the cornerstone to uh, Eastern, uh, I guess, thought is community, right? Um,
Hmm. It's like a
and it's
collective
if everyone is
endeavor.
happy,
Yeah.
then you can be happy,
Do you
right?
find do you find that I'm not very familiar with Thai culture. I actually was planning to go to Thailand with a close friend of mine. We were planning to go basically early spring this year, but I don't think that'll happen until things kind
Hmm.
of figure themselves out. Um, with Thai culture, I normally hear that it is very hospitable. There's some of like the nicest people, and regardless of like where you come from, they will go out of your way to like help you. Like my girlfriend went there and she said that she was kind of lost, and this one random person like literally like took her hand and like walked her from point A to point B and then just said, good luck, bye, enjoy your
Yeah,
stay or whatever. And like
yeah.
she didn't pay him and you know, uh he wasn't making any money from what he did, so he just kind of did it. Do you find that that's Thai culture, or is that just the area where their tourists are at, so they know they have to be nice in order for people to come back?
I think that's just Eastern culture in general. So
Okay.
just my mom worked in adoption services for a while, which is actually how they met me, and so she's been all over the world, and everywhere she's been, at least around orphanages, that's just the mindset. You just do things for people because you want to do things for people,
Mm.
right? And I think that comes down again to the lack of the individualistic thought in it. I mean, Thailand's a very Western Asian culture, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So you get, obviously everywhere you'll get a mix of it, but because of where it's at, and at least in my experience, it can be very Western, but it can be also the exact opposite. I visited this tiny village. Uh, what was there? It was all based around some sort of agriculture. I can't remember it. I was
Mm.
like 7,
Okay.
but like I remember going to this church, and like I just like some random stranger. It's just like, hey, you want to ride on the scooter? So I like got up the hill to the church on this scooter, and like it's just everyone's okay with it, right? Like,
Mm.
or even just like uh every morning we'd wake up to like fresh fruit. They just bring us food. Every house we went into, they fed us,
Mm.
right?
Interesting. Now, you know what's funny is you mentioned the scooter thing. Like, I was trying to picture how somebody would react to that here,
Yeah,
right? Like if you're like, "Hey, hop on my scooter," you'd be like, "Well, is that allowed? Like, can I have a helmet? Like,
yeah.
are we gonna get pulled over? Does the scooter like have the
Or even
capacity
like,
for two
where are we
people?"
going, right?
Or like,
Like,
"Well, I don't know you. I don't trust you."
yeah, yeah.
Right? Total stranger. What do you? I'm curious. What do you think would happen? Let's say. So I have this theory that a lot of these Eastern cultures are collective in their right because of the fact that the country doesn't allow for a lot of personal like advancement economically. Like it's almost like you can't unless like you're an oligarch or something, you can't really become like super wealthy like a normal person can like in the States or in Canada. So it's almost like it's better for your survival for everybody to have each other's backs. Whereas here, because or here, Canada, and as well, you know, mainly more in the States, just Western culture, because it's so individualistic because it's almost beneficial for you to accumulate your own things and have your own back. Do you think that
Hmm.
if we like if you were, let's say, in charge of Thailand and you were able to like change the economic landscape that so it replicated Western culture, do you think that culture would change and become more individualist, or do you think something else would happen?
Interesting thought. Uh, I don't know. It's a very, because sociology is so uh, complex. I don't think it would ever be like a simple formula like that, because
Okay.
I think Thailand's on its way to actually becoming a Western culture, just like
Mm,
China is pretty much a Western culture, right? It is very individualistic, right?
mm.
It's capitalism where the poor are ruled by communism. At least that's how it's been portrayed to me, and that's my view of it.
Well,
Um,
China's kind of like they're growing their middle class through capitalism, but you still have to like follow the rules of the government. Like there's certain
yeah,
things you can't say. There's censorship, so they're not free in that regard, but they're allowing for like economic growth because they want to be in
yeah,
power. I think that's what's going on.
yeah, and well, like, and then you look at Thailand. It's, well, I would never call Thailand a third world country anymore, but
Mhm.
20 years ago when I was adopted, like it 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 was on the verge of that, right?
Mm.
Like, I think if you, it isn't necessarily about changing Thailand to capitalism, because it is a capitalist country, right?
Okay.
You look at Thailand right now, it is. It just doesn't. It just hasn't had that same manufacturing backing, or even just the setup that other countries have, right? Like uh, you look at the advancement that the U.S. had in the last 200 years, right? Um, that blows my mind. I
Like
don't
the
think,
industrial investment
yeah,
advancement.
yeah, I,
What
there's
about it?
just, there's the ability to. I don't think the
Hmm.
economics support it in Thailand necessarily
Hmm.
to make that, to get it to a point where it is, it is capitalistic, and then everyone can enjoy that wealth.
Hmm. Interesting. So, so your position is less to do with the economic conditions and more to do with what people do with those economic conditions. So the culture at the end of the day dictates what we do with our economy.
I think I think it's a good it's a healthy combination of both. Maybe not actually healthy, but it's a combination of both for sure. I
Hmm.
think I think culture definitely dictates that a lot more.
Hmm.
But
Interesting.
at the same time, it's hard to say because Thailand hasn't had the economics to even challenge that idea,
What do you
right?
mean?
Um, at least from what from its uh, its numbers, like it could
Mm,
never
okay, got it.
it could never, or at least it currently can't support everyone having that idea.
Right. It
Have
just
like
doesn't
it can't.
have the space or the resources to be able to do what is possible in the Western
Yes,
countries.
yes.
Okay. So have you actually had a chance to go back to Thailand since you moved here?
I've been there 3 times. I was actually supposed to go back in October. Uh,
Mm.
would have been it would It's been a long time since I've been back there. Um, I do actually know my birth mom.
Oh,
So that's been a cool experience, and I was hoping to visit her again. We had chatted about that, and it was going to be nice. But
mm,
I think going back as an adult is going to be an important milestone in my life, just to
hmm.
kind of, I don't know, fully realize where I'm coming from might be a little strong, but at the same time, like obviously when you're a child, you have a certain innocence that you can't really fully grasp exactly what life is like in a certain
Mm,
area.
mm. So it's kind of like going back to your roots
Yes.
to see what life could have been had you not been brought here.
It's almost not really an homage, but
Mm.
a respect to my heritage and to all the amazing things that happened in my life to lead me to having this conversation with you.
Right. I mean, it's just the appreciation of knowing that where you are, there is a ton more opportunity than where you started. And
Totally.
honestly, like you just kind of got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mm.
exactly how I feel on it.
Personally, I've never really known anyone that was like adopted from another country. So like
Mm.
none of my close friends were born in a different country and adopted to a foreign family. So if you don't mind, I'm kind of curious about like how that shaped your life. Like, what's that
Totally.
like? What's that
It's
like?
it's funny because like I don't remember the moment that I found out that I was adopted. It just kind of has always been in my mind. But I do remember this moment. I would have been really young, under 4, so
Hmm.
4 and under. And I remember, so my dad, just for context, my dad is white. He's 6'6", very large man. And I remember asking my mom, as she was putting me to bed, if I'd ever be as tall as my dad.
So what
And
was
just
her response?
I can't remember. I just remember that moment. I can't remember the specifics of what she said, but it was definitely just gently letting me down at that moment.
Just just no.
No,
Unlikely.
no.
No. That's hilarious.
And that is like the earliest moment of knowing that I was different than my family.
Is your
I
mom
have a
is your
very
mom white as well?
yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I actually have a very diverse family. So they had a child. My adoptive parents had a child. She's white, obviously. And then they adopted an Afro American
Mm-hmm.
girl right before me.
Mm.
So very diverse family.
Wow.
So obviously for me, it would be even a little bit different than other people, right? Because I kind of grew up in that environment where it was okay for everyone to be different, or not even okay, but it was normal,
Mm.
right?
So you didn't
Um,
really feel like you were out of place because your family
no,
was already so mixed matched anyways.
exactly.
Interesting.
Like I was raised on the idea that just because we're a different color doesn't mean we aren't family, right? And
Mm.
so, or that there wasn't that separation that's kind of is prevalent in a lot of things today, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess it's not just today; it's been forever. But then I guess the next big mile marker would be meeting my mom at the age of 7. I think I would have been 6 or 7,
Mm.
and that was kind of crazy. It's crazy to look back at that now and realize like you just don't have that same connection, right? I
With
went,
your biological mom?
yeah,
Mm.
you just don't. It's like meeting an aunt or an uncle, I'd say, right?
Mm.
Like you have a connection to them, but they really are kind of just a stranger that you're supposed to have a connection with, right? So it's as the child, it's definitely harder to feel those emotions. I think
Yeah, like
as a parent, it would be a lot more moving or emotional, but as the child, especially a, like a child, you don't exactly realize just what's going on.
did you find the whole experience made you grow faster? Like it accelerated your childhood?
Like the experience of meeting my mom or the experience of
Everything.
being adopted, everything.
Everything. Yeah.
I think, well, like it's hard to say that because I think the situations that happened to me because I was different, because I was adopted, could happen to even someone that wasn't. Um, just I found a lot of independence in my life. Just being the youngest, I got a lot of passes that my sisters didn't. Um,
What do you mean?
I did a just like staying out late. I've got really good.
You were the
I got
youngest though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, that's why all the youngest kids
exactly.
get to do
No,
everything.
exactly. Uh, among other things, but like I got the most freedom while still being accepted by my parents. Like my freedom was accepted by my parents.
Mm.
Um, that just comes. I wouldn't even say comes down to being adopted with a lot of the problems. Like obvious, I was, well, maybe not obviously, but yeah, I was made fun of because I was different, right? You got those stigmas against Asians, right? Being short, having small dicks. I mean, it's not that small, guys. Come on.
It's a whole 3 inches, all right? That is a whole dick.
I
That
dare
is
you
a
to cut
whole
3 inches
dick.
off your hair and tell me that's not a lot.
God, that's good.
But
Oh man.
like it's
How did we
it
end
is
up here?
we have senses of humor. It can
Yeah.
go anywhere.
Yeah.
But no, like when you're a teenager and you're that insecure, those comments like really shape you.
Yeah.
Like I struggled with a lot of that throughout. I guess it would be like my teens age, but I have also fortunately had an amazing support group. Right, I wouldn't even necessarily go to my parents, but I just had some real friends. Right,
Mm.
people that kind of kept you grounded and showed you what was important in life, and through those experiences, that's what I feel made me grow faster.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Kind of accelerated the naivety portion of childhood where
hmm
your innocence kind of like faded quicker because you're like, oh, the world is different. The world isn't what
Yeah,
It's not just gumballs. Like
Yeah. I
there's
mean, that
stuff
even
going
comes
on.
from the traveling that my family did, right?
Mm.
Like even just going to Thailand, right? And having the opportunity to travel. But I wouldn't say it's all necessarily because I was adopted that I learned these things. It's that could be for anyone. That could happen to anyone,
You
right?
just happen to be exposed. I mean, I wasn't adopted. I hope. Sometimes we wonder, but I had a similar experience in the realm of immigration,
Hmm.
where I went from a part of the world, and I came here when I was almost 8 years old, so I had a little bit more time
Yeah.
in Iran, and we came here, and I was very aware of scarcity. So I knew
Mhm.
that things like money or food or whatever weren't just things that you had. Like it was things you had to like pay for, right?
Hmm.
So growing up as a kid, I was very reluctant to ever say if I wanted a toy. I
Oh,
was,
okay. Yeah.
and I still am to this day, but what that did was that sort of like took away that kind of nonchalance that most kids have. Like I specifically remember early on when we moved to Canada, I was on it was like lunchtime. I was on a swing set during school lunchtime, like the recess time. And
Hmm.
I had a Granny Smith apple in my hand and I was like eating it and my friend was like pushing me. And
Yeah.
then at that time, I barely spoke English, but my friend said, "Hey, do you want me to do like when they like go underneath the swing
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
like push you over their shoulder to like get like a really big
Yeah.
swing?" And I didn't really understand what he said, so I just kind of like said nothing, and I guess he took that as a yes. So I'm eating this apple, I'm not holding on to the chain, and then he
Yeah.
goes and does it, and obviously I fall off, and the apple falls out of my hand and falls on the ground, and I had just started biting into it, and like that was a long time ago, dude. Like that was like
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
8, so that was like 19 years ago almost. And I remember I was so guilty. I felt so guilty that I had dropped an apple that my parents
Yeah.
had paid for me to eat. It wasn't that I was hungry and then I didn't have the apple anymore. It was like I actually felt the guilt. I'm like, that apple costed money. And I was like,
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
can't have it because it's got sawdust and wood shavings all over it. So, like, that kind of stuff has stayed with me for sure. And I
Totally.
think that had to do with the fact that we went from a part of the world to another part that I didn't even know existed. And
Yeah.
there's no way your innocence stays when you go through something like that.
No, obvious that it would be impossible to ask anyone with that kind of cognitive ability to stay the same
Hmm.
during such an extreme change. Like even moving from so I spent when I was 10, I spent a year in Thailand. My parents did missions out there. And even that was life changing, right? Just spending
Hmm.
1 year in this place that I'm from, right? It's such a weird thing to tell for a kid, for people to tell you this is your history, right?
Hmm.
When you've had zero connection to it, right? Sure, like I was always told and stuff, but like there was never that like parent that was just like that drilled certain things into me. Like I didn't even speak the language, right?
Right.
Um, so like when I'm brought there and they're like, this is this is you essentially, right? It's such a weird experience to think about, right? Like
Hmm.
especially as a kid. I think now you can kind of I that's why I want to go as an adult, right? To fully respect it. But as a kid, you're just like you don't feel that way. You don't feel that is your identity because your identity is pretty much limited to school and your friends and the people that you get surrounded with. You don't
Right.
have as much choice in your identity.
Right. So
And
when they were telling you, "Hey, this is where you're from, this is your culture," did that kind of piss you off?
almost did. It was more like I just kind of shrugged it off. Like it didn't matter to me at
Mm.
that time. Like because it had no impact on my life. It had no actual tangible change to my life to realizing that's my history and it's not, right?
Mm.
So it was just always, at least to me, it was always strange to be told that this is not necessarily where I belong, but that's kind of where what it felt like, right?
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. How did we get here?
Who knows?
So you wanted to go back as an adult in October. Obviously, that didn't happen. Was there, like, other than your mom, was there anybody else there that you're connected with or you're aware of, or
Well,
is it
like
just your mom?
my parents have friends out there, but that's not really who I want to
Okay.
hang out with, right? No, it would have just been like
Like, you
me
don't
and
have
my cat.
siblings that would be
I
related to
actually
you, do
do
you?
have siblings out there.
Okay.
I don't have any, like I have them on Facebook, but that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
there was not much of a connection. Like I'd definitely go see them. That's kind of just uh like I feel like it would be very, very disrespectful to go out there and not at least take the time to go see your relatives. But
Mhm.
other than that, there's no one else that I'd really feel like obligated to go see. I
Mm.
have a brother and a mother in Thailand. And
Mm.
but outside of that, I just kind of want to experience as a photographer the landscapes because like I've already seen them as a kid and seen how beautiful they are, and then I've always got had like photos. I see photos because obviously being Thai, I get shown these things,
Yeah.
right? And it's just very it was a very exciting idea to go visit and pay my respects to the place that I'm from by capturing it in a uh in a way coming from being a Western person, like coming from like everything that I've learned and my art as someone from the Western world, right? Taking my art to Thailand, essentially.
Mm. Let's get back to photography. I want to talk a
Yeah.
bit more about that. So we kind of talked about how you got to where you are now, but you said you were kind of in a transition stage. You're hoping to turn it into your full-time career and not have to work the other odd jobs that you do. What is your like dream
Hmm.
for photography?
I guess my dream would be uh almost it's funny because it's almost a combination of going back to like a day job because like it isn't necessarily that I want stability, but that is something that would be nice to have, at least
Hmm.
career stability. But I'd love the idea of like not having to search for my next project, right? Like just being able to lay down projects and like challenge myself with new things at all times.
So you mean like so you don't have to look for your next customer? Is that what you mean? Like you
Yeah,
want people to,
yeah.
okay. So you want your
I
network or your
want
business to be built to a
to be
point where people come to you.
yes. Yeah, essentially. Like I want like all my back end and customer funding to be automated essentially.
Mm.
Like to the point where I can almost be hands off with it, whether that be getting a manager or just always having someone coming to me.
How close to you, how close to that are you right now?
Um, because just with how COVID affected everything, I feel like I'm back to square one, back to like first year of building a business, essentially, right? Like, you know, how they always say, or people say that it takes 4 years to build a business.
Hmm.
And in those 4 years, it's like a make it or break it sort of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm kind of, at least I feel like I'm kind of just back to my first year and uh, I need to just start over, but with new skills, right? With the skills that I've made as someone who's started building it already, right? Um, I don't know necessarily what it would even look like to do it, because there's just so many ways you can pursue any career, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So right now, obviously, with because of your profession and because of the photos you take, you need people in your photos for the most part, right? Or
Hmm.
most of the things that you take pictures of happen to do with people. So is there a way for you to be able to pivot and like get ahead? Because my thing is, it's like the way I see it is if you're kind of waiting for the opportunity to for things to go back to normal and they don't, or there's a new normal, or during the time that you wait, other competitors or other photographers are able to pull ahead by pivoting. Is there like anything you can do to pivot in this time and do things differently?
Well, I think I made a lot of mistakes over this last year. I went through any savings that I had,
Mm.
and just because of what the stuff that I like to do, you kind of need the money to back it. Um, I like there's a few different options for me. The pivot that I wanted to make is to back to a job that builds me a little bit more money, and I want to have a financial backing, at least for myself, to go out and do my own travels. I don't want to have to necessarily get out a loan for my business.
Mhm.
Um, my take on it is I'm young. I still have a lot to learn. And the day job that I'd like would be within sales or business, and I want to learn about the business end of everything, because that's where I lack most of my knowledge.
Okay.
As far as like technical camera stuff goes, I could probably teach classes, right?
Mm.
Just because of like I have real world experience with professionals and as a professional,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's only so much you can learn and so much you can teach about the technical side of photography. It's the business side that is the open ended one, at least in my view of it, and that's the part that I actually genuinely enjoy. For me right now, it's like just with what I'm currently doing, uh, I just need a little more money to be able to do more.
Mm.
Um, like it's, I think there's two ways that I've been debating, and it's just switch my style of photography or go back into a job that would let me continue the stuff that I want to do.
Mm.
And
So
and I think that's just been my for the last couple months. That's just been what's been stirring around in my head.
so you're in this position where you have to make a decision and
Well,
pivot in
you
a
have to
way,
make them, right.
but you're not sure which one.
Yeah, like it's life is full of decisions, and this is just my next one. And honestly, if you're not moving forward, or not at least trying to move forward, things will pass you by. And that's just, I think, the biggest life lesson that I've garnered in the last few years of my life as a photographer. Like
Mm.
in the last 3 years, I worked full time construction and and then also worked photography, and that was a great setup. But I stepped away from my construction to pursue photography, and then found out that I didn't actually have the funds to continue doing what I want to. So now I'm set up with two more choices, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of figuring out how you can like explain the fund part more. Like I'm not really getting why there's certain funds that you need for your photography. Like what do you
Well,
need?
there's always going to be a cost to taking photos. Whether that be like the bigger ones are always travel. Like when you take a day to go take photos, you can you can always bring it down, but there's bring the cost on a budget, but there's always going to be a cost. And right now, at least in my niche of photography, there hasn't been enough work to go around for me to even do work
Mm.
on a consistent basis and so I think that my idea behind it is go back to a job that lets me spend my 2 days a week doing whatever I want, right? Because when I was doing that before in construction, I went to Banff over the weekends. I went to Oregon over the weekends. Like, money wasn't having the freedom, the financial freedom of whatever I want on the weekends was always what made me the photographer that I am, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not that I feel that at least I don't think I'm a lazy person,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's I've uh I need the ability, or I need the funds
Right.
to even go out and build my portfolio, to go out
Got
and
it.
take photos, to go out,
Because,
because
well, yeah, I mean, for people who haven't seen your pictures, like your pictures are destination
mm-hmm.
photography. I would,
Yes,
if I had to give it a label. So you have to get to that destination,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay, that makes
exactly.
sense. Yeah, I wasn't sure what you meant originally. I thought maybe you needed like more camera work or
No, yeah,
lenses or whatnot, but it seems like you've got a fair bit of stuff.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
it's and that's what I mean, even in my shift, right? Like, I'm a tourism and adventure photographer. If I decide to switch to wedding, then totally. There's totally space for money there. There's totally space for me to have financial stability. And you know what? I did a few weddings. I have the ability to just put my portfolio out there.
Right.
But do I want to, I wouldn't even call it a compromise, but do I want to pursue photography like that, or pursue photography in a field that I want to be in? Right? There's
Well,
always,
you're also, like you said, you're really young too. Like you don't
yeah,
have to have it figured out. And
exactly.
who
Exactly.
knows how far photography will go for you down the road, right? Like
Totally.
you don't know if this is a stepping stone or if this is a calling or if this is like a transition from one medium to another. Like maybe one day somebody will hire you to do like digital landscapes for video games just because you're
Yeah.
really good at taking pictures of landscapes. You
Yeah.
don't know what the world has in store for you, but you just got to keep going and just keep making things that interest you, and then
Yeah.
eventually something unexpected happens. That's how
Exactly.
I feel the world actually is.
Like, my big thing is, like, as long as I keep making decisions, something's going to happen,
Yeah,
right?
you just have to be intentional, and there needs to be some sort of like goal. Like I think there is such a thing as just doing too much and like
Hmm.
busy work or just hustling just for the sake of hustling. And there's certain endeavors that just won't really get anywhere because of the nature of the endeavor. But if
Yeah.
you're building something for yourself, especially if it's something creative, what's interesting is if you put your own spin on it, then you don't have any competitors
Hmm.
because no one can be uniquely you. I stole this idea from his name is Naval Ravikant. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's a huge like uh you can call him an influencer, but he's not. He's actually an entrepreneur. He's a like an angel fund investor. He owns a whole bunch of businesses, but he's a huge name in the tech industry. And he
Okay.
always says is the way for you to make it is for you to not have to have competition. And the only way for you to not have competition, there's two ways. One is you lobby the government and you basically have a monopoly in a business which is illegal, but you somehow make it work. Or the other thing is you create something that is genuinely you. And because you are so unique and individual in your own right, no one can compete with you because no one is you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you just find a pocket of people that are interested in you, then you can sustain yourself. It just depends on how big your dreams are.
No, I love that. I love that. It goes back to even, like, how to make it in photography. One of the ways that you just make it is literally just keep posting. Just post every single day. Post what you love. There's someone out there that also loves what you love, right?
Yeah.
Um, what always bugged me about, like, the whole entrepreneur end of, like, being a business owner and doing photography is that, like, every advice, all the advice you get so vague and indirect. It's never feels tangible. And that's always been a big gripe with it. But that's always because there's so many different ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my biggest thing, because I feel like a lot of people feel like that, like even the advice that I give, I'm also guilty of that, right? Of just being like super vague and like non-specific almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing that has helped me is just staying healthy, but always doing something, always, always like working on something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and at least in my world of networking and stuff, that has always helped me, right? Whether it be towards my business or even just making a good relationship with someone who can help you.
Well, that's it entirely, because most of the times that you end up succeeding has to do with the connection you had with somebody
Yeah,
rather than what you actually did. At least I find. And then the times that, like, let's say if you put up a picture on Instagram and it blows up, it goes viral, it gets a whole bunch of likes and reposts and whatnot. In a sense, that's kind of luck, because
hmm
there's no way you could have predicted that that photo was going to blow up the way it did.
yeah,
But the fact that that photo blew up is because you kept working and you kept putting stuff up. Maybe you put 600 photos up and they've slowly gotten more and more popularity, but then this one has a disproportionate amount of popularity compared to everything
totally.
else. There's no way you could have predicted that when you took that photo, when you edited it, when you uploaded it, when you picked the hashtags for it. You wouldn't
Yeah.
know any of that. But you still had to just do it. And then
hmm
something random happened. And that's what I
Yeah.
mean, is you just don't know how the world is going to react to what you
That's
do.
that's a great there's a great analogy to that, and it's actually lies in TikTok. So TikTok's algorithm is famous for being very well worked out and very advanced. In that it groups you into different niches very well.
Hmm.
But a lot of growth on TikTok is literally just chance because on Instagram, your homepage shows you the people that you're following. On TikTok, it just takes you immediately to what's called the For You page, or just everybody's posts that uh, TikTok thinks that you will like. And
Mm-hmm.
so the way that you grow on TikTok is literally just post once, twice a day, right? And post
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that you like, and you'll be put in that niche. Like I went from like 2 followers to 16,000 followers on TikTok in a month, just because that was when I was going to Iceland, and I posted a bunch of videos when I went to Iceland, and I
Mm.
had a few that blew up,
Hmm.
right? Or like I had even on Instagram, I have a video with 250,000 views on Instagram, which is a lot more than you would get even now with the whole new Instagram Reels. It was like the old school Instagram videos, and I got 500,000 views when I had 6,000 followers, and it came from just posting a photo of me diving into cold water, something that
Mm-hmm.
like not many people will do, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to be a certain kind of crazy, and you just never know. You just never
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to
I
work.
mean, you just did it because it was interesting and fun, and you're like, you know what? I think, you know, people might like this, or I like it, or I want to remember this, so I'm just going to do this. So I'll make sure it's recording while I do it.
Yeah.
And then 500,000 people ended up watching it. Talk to me more about TikTok, because I am very interested in TikTok and I don't
Yeah.
understand it as well as you do. Okay, first, actually, let me talk about TikTok because this is my understanding of it. So I
Okay.
went on
Okay.
it. I've been trying to, obviously grow this channel. So I've been trying to figure out how to post properly on TikTok. So from my
Okay.
understanding, the videos can be a minute long, right?
hmm
And then there's different hashtags that I look up to see what hashtags are trending, and then also like what people are posting, the type of content. Like for example, things I find interesting, personal finance. So if you put on personal finance, it'll show you all the different hashtags of videos or posts on personal finance. And I find that most of the stuff on TikTok is people actually made something for TikTok on TikTok, because they got like they're like sticking their hand out and there's like these like thought bubbles. Like it's very few times that people are posting clips from YouTube and putting it on TikTok. I find that's more common on Instagram. Is that true, or did I just not
It's
see as much?
it's probably more because of the format of it. So
Mm,
TikTok being only vertical, only portrait orientation, it's very hard to fit a 16 by 9 the other way. It's
mm,
very hard. Like even now, you would get about this much of me on
mm-hmm,
an iPhone, right?
mm-hmm.
So I think that is mostly the issue. But that being said, there is actually quite a bit of it, and it comes down to an editing to your editing choice.
Because
I've seen a lot of like photography and videography people do it, and whether they just tell you to tilt your screen or whatever.
yeah, yeah, that. Because I know
Yeah,
Instagram, IG, video or whatever. Some
yeah,
creators have like the tilt
yeah,
your phone, and then it goes into the
yeah.
landscape lens, I guess. Okay. So like,
I think the best way to describe TikTok is it's is by its format, because you can only have a minute long, and most of like I'd even say this is anecdotal. There's no research behind it, but I'd say 90% of the videos that go viral are under 30 seconds,
yeah, yeah.
right? It's about quick content, and that's a lot harder to turn over into anything than longer format, but it also gives you a more of a chance to go viral.
Did you find that when your TikTok following grew, that it downstream grew your Instagram following?
Yeah, it's not so much. It's not as much as you would think. Like one of my best friends has a 250,000 followers on TikTok, and he really only got like 1% of that to convert to Instagram.
Hmm.
But then I had another friend make 16,000 on TikTok, and I think he converted that to almost 10,000 on his Instagram. Whether I don't know if it was exactly just his TikTok that was going viral at that
Hmm.
moment, or if it was both. But a lot of that did come from his TikTok.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I'm really interested in it because what I've been wanting to do is make, because YouTube's bread and butter is like videos that are 10 minutes long or
yeah,
longer. That's what
yeah,
YouTube loves. So I've been trying to do these like deep dives in these topics, but then I was like, okay, I can post those on Instagram because Instagram is IG video. But if I want to put it on TikTok, I basically have to recreate it and turn a 10-minute video into 30 seconds, or I have to splice it and then somehow convince people to go from TikTok to YouTube.
I think the best advice I'd give is either take it in a different direction and and post like new content on your TikTok, and then try to convert that through you to YouTube.
Hmm.
Or even what I'd suggest is just sound bites. Like literally just like get like either the most important thing said,
Hmm.
and and then just use that, or get like a short bit, like a very funny or very wacky or wild or even extreme thing,
Mm.
right? um so like even our jokes about Asians, right? Throw that up on there,
Yeah.
right? Or it's controversial, it's interesting, it makes you want to listen to the context of it, at least for adults like us, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a pull, but then like I guess what you would have to do is just link the YouTube channel because I know TikTok lets you do that, and
Yeah,
then people would have to like go and find the video and watch
yeah,
the context there.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really interested in all this like social media stuff, because obviously that's where a lot of the creative leverage is once you have a following, is you can do a
Yeah,
lot with that. Even outside of your actual base, you can do a lot of it.
totally. Well,
But
like that's where a lot of world power now sits in social media.
yeah, yeah. And for me, it's less to do with like the numerical number of followers, but more to do with the, I guess, the impact and the leverage of it. Because like I don't know,
Okay.
like, because I know TikTok, for example, like it wants people to use it. So right now it's pushing a lot of its videos up organically. It doesn't really have sponsored videos from my understanding. So like the odds of you growing a following is a lot higher on TikTok than
Yeah.
on YouTube and Instagram, at least the speed in which you can do it.
Yeah.
But then it's like I don't really care if I have like 50K people following me on TikTok if I can't really do anything about it on the other platforms that actually have a
Totally.
system in place for you to be able to create a business out of it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I guess
Um.
it's kind of figuring that out.
Yeah, and obviously the most ludicrous options are always the most volatile, right?
Hmm.
Um, where like uh, I have videos with like almost a million views and stuff. It's right now at this point in time, it is very hard to still. I could never tell you if I was going to get a million views on something or not,
Mm.
right? Even my video that I posted, I never thought would even reach close to that, right? Um, and then a lot of videos that I think would do great, few thousand views, right? Like it's so, at least with TikTok, it is so uh, unpredictable would be the word.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I also did notice that. I noticed where there was like somebody made one video and I'd go on their feed and like let's say their one video got like 500,000 likes or whatever, and then the rest of their videos have like under 1,000 or they have a couple
yeah,
hundred. So it's like one of them blew up, that gave them their small following, and now the rest of it is just kind of whatever. So it's,
yeah,
whereas I find YouTube is more consistent. Instagram is a bit more consistent. It's kind of the middle ground. But the most
yeah,
consistent is YouTube. But it's also the one that takes the longest and it's the hardest for you to build some sizable following.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I think that kind of goes back to another conversation we had in creating uh, different levels of your content.
Hmm.
As a photographer, that isn't quite as relevant, but when you're talking about long form media like this and other podcasts, I think it's important to have uh, still those clickbait titles. That's there's a reason why everyone has a clickbait title is because it works. And
Hmm.
as much as we can hate on it, um, if you aren't using the tools given to you, it's it's wasteful almost,
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of your own fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't whine about it and not use that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so like I think with even if you have a large following on TikTok and can't leverage or aren't currently leveraging it, there's still the ability to play around and see what actually can work to leverage it.
Hmm.
You still have the option to try, right? Even if at first you actually aren't making any conversions.
Hmm.
Because at least from my experience, from a few of my friends, it can or can't work. But
Mm.
everyone's trying something different.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, dude, we just did an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, it blew by. Um, why don't you let everybody know how to follow you, like all your different social media all accounts? What are they?
Yeah, yeah. So if right now I'm just mostly on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to hit them up, my Instagram's always going to be more interesting. It's just at Cole.Lundberg, Cole period Lundberg.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Thanks, Cole. It was fun.
Thank you. It was always a pleasure, and I really enjoyed talking to you. So I'm glad to have hopped on. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to have you too. See you, everyone.